India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in Berlin. After Germany, Prime Minister Modi will also visit Denmark and France. This happens to be Prime Minister Modi's first visit abroad in the year 2022. While in Berlin, he will be holding bilateral talks with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. The two leaders will co-chair the 6th edition of the India-Germany Intergovernmental Consultations. Several other ministers from both sides will also participate in the high-level talks. Prime Minister Modi met the Indian diaspora in Berlin. People extended a warm welcome to the Indian Prime Minister.
स्वागत के लिए एक झलक पाने के लिए यहाँ पर पहले से मौजूद हैं और प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी यहाँ पर अब विचार विमर्श के बाद उस पर प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी.
The next stop will be Copenhagen. The Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, has also invited Prime Minister Modi. He will participate in the second India-Nordic summit hosted by Denmark. Prime Minister Modi will also interact with other Nordic leaders, including Prime Ministers of Iceland, Norway, Sweden and Finland. He will also attend an India-Denmark business forum. Prime Minister Modi will then meet the Indian community in Denmark. The summit will also focus on issues of common interest, like post-pandemic economic recovery, climate change, renewable energy, evolving global security, innovation and technology, and the India-Nordic cooperation in the Arctic. Last but not the least, Prime Minister Modi will make a brief stop in Paris. He will meet French President Emmanuel Macron, who recently was elected for the second time. India and France complete 75 years of diplomatic cooperation this year. The high-level meeting comes at a time when Russia continues its invasion of Ukraine. The European Union is trying to find alternatives to Russian oil and gas. Europe's focus is shifting to green energy to reduce its reliance on Russian energy. The European Investment Bank will now focus on more sustainable projects in India. Once again, for all our viewers tuning into WION World is One right now, stay tuned for our continuing coverage of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tour to Europe, a three-nation tour, his first foreign visit this year. The focus, of course, will be post-pandemic recovery, climate change, and all this is happening while Russia continues its invasion of Ukraine. Now, for more details, our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibil is now joining us live from Berlin. Siddhant, thanks for joining us again. Tell us a bit more about the Indian Prime Minister's first foreign trip of the year, a significant one. He will, of course, be meeting different European leaders with the Ukraine conflict still raging in the backdrop. What's on the agenda?
Well, all in all, he is meeting 7 European leaders, starting with the German Chancellor, the new German Chancellor, and then, of course, the 5 Nordic leaders under the India-Nordic Summit, the second India-Nordic Summit, and then later on Emmanuel Macron, the French President. Largely, there will be issues related to bilateral relationship, energy, clean technology, climate change, trade and defense as well. But the changing geopolitics is something that will be dominating the agenda. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is something that has been a cause of concern here in Europe, and Europe has been engaging with India on that issue. We have seen high-level visits from Europe. The European Union leadership and the British Prime Minister were in Delhi, and then we have seen visits of the European foreign ministers, and now the Indian Prime Minister in Europe, the 3-country visit, packed visit. Today is the first day in Germany. They had two components. One, of course, the meeting with the high-level, with the leadership under the high-level format of the intergovernmental consultations. And earlier in the day, we saw how the Indian diaspora gave a rousing reception to the Indian Prime Minister, welcoming him at the hotel. And later on today, we will see the Prime Minister addressing the diaspora as well. So there are every shade of components in terms of whether it's the people-to-people connect in terms of the diaspora, or whether it's the emerging security challenges. As the Prime Minister in his departure statement said that the region faces issues. So that is something that undoubtedly will be the key focus. Later on today, we will see the joint press statement by the Indian Prime Minister and the German Chancellor. And it will be interesting to note how the Indian side and the German side mention the Ukrainian crisis, the Ukrainian war.
Absolutely, Siddhant. Thanks so much for all those updates. We'll, of course, keep coming back to you through the day for more once these crucial meetings get underway. And now for more analysis, also joining us from New Delhi is Harsh V. Pant. He is the head of the ORF Strategic Studies Program. Harsh, thanks so much for joining us on WION World is One. Let's begin now by talking about the timing of this visit. India was recently at the center of diplomacy with different leaders visiting the nation. And now Prime Minister Modi, of course, is in Berlin on a three-nation Europe tour. What can we expect?
I think we can expect a conversation around Ukrainian, externalities emerging out of the Ukrainian situation. I think India would present its side and would try to understand what the Europeans have in mind when it comes to the larger evolving strategic realities on the ground. But also, I think this is a very important moment in India-Europe relations. Europe and India are converging like they have not converged in a very, very long time. The largest strategic issues, irrespective of Ukraine differences, are a manifestation of this reality that India and Europe today see the world in similar ways. There is great convergence. The trade and technology dimension of this relationship is very important for India. So India would be hoping that those conversations are front and center, as well as the strategic realities of the long term can be right at the heart of this conversation, so that the divergences of today can be managed in a manner that allows India and Europe to build a partnership and that responds to the challenges of the 21st century.
Right, Harsh, since you mentioned the Ukraine conflict, that of course is likely to dominate discussions or at least loom in the backdrop. India so far has exercised quite a balanced approach and has called for peaceful dialogue instead of picking a side, so to speak. How will this visit impact India's stance on the war?
I don't think it is going to change in any way India's fundamental position that remains embedded in the larger normative idea that all stakeholders in this crisis should be responding to this crisis through the mechanisms of UN Charter and respecting the territorial integrity and sovereignty of each other. But I think what is going to happen, or perhaps is likely to happen, is that both sides are going to air their differences in a respectful manner, and trying to ascertain that Europe has a certain position on this issue. Germany has a certain position on this issue that has been articulated by the German Chancellor. India has a certain position on this issue which has been articulated by Indian leadership, and the two sides will be trying to find ways of seeing that how the two can work together in making sure that that the conflict is resolved through diplomacy and dialogue, as has been the position of both sides, but also ensuring that the long-term strategic stability of this region remains at the heart of this conversation. And as India has pointed out, without dialogue, without a sustained diplomatic engagement, this process cannot be resolved. So Ukraine certainly is going to be at the heart of the conversation, especially for many in Europe. This remains the most important and potent challenge at the moment, and India would be expected to respond to this challenge by articulating its own view and its own role in shaping this crisis. And India remains one of the few countries where all stakeholders can actually talk about this crisis. We have seen that during the Raisina dialogue, as well as in the past, where in the same day we had the American Deputy National Security Advisor and the Russian Foreign Minister in Delhi.
Absolutely. Harsh, thanks so much for summing that up for us so emphatically. Thanks for joining us on WION World is One. WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.